To pray, there's no angels where I go. Only pieces that are broken, scattered dreams across the floor. I'm home.
Alrighty, hello everybody, this is Show here. Now, before we do get into the video, let us talk about Midoriya's halfway Kakuja, I guess you could say, or the one that is closer, if not a full version of it. Now, Midoriya's Kakuja is 3 times the size of a human body. He was able to be physically more powerful than muscular whenever he did have those muscle fibers covering his body. He was around that size with this form of shape to him, but he did have the arms on the back that were directly above his shoulders. He also did have this form of crown behind him, or these sharp spikes. However, the only real difference was, instead of a regular head, I want to say he kept this shape to it. He had the same sort of Kakuja form as Eto, I want to say, but instead of her residing in the head and having it be that shape with a spiked crown on top of it, Midoriya had a more owl shape to it. He did keep that, well, I want to say it was more or less rounded out like Yoshimura's mask. He looked more like an actual owl, I want to say, while he was physically larger. I do want to at least clear that up and throw that out there in case any of you guys were wondering what he actually did look like. And I did want to make the form its own little thing. Anyways, let's get into the what if. Alrighty, hello everybody. This is Show here. And yes, that was probably a very long explanation. I did not put a timer on it. Now, with that all being said, let us begin. It has been a very long night, and a very tough week. Directly after the night where Midoriya killed All for One, and Bakugo was arrested, a lot of information was found out. Midoriya and Origiri Tree suffered a heavy blow. In fact, 98% of their people were destroyed. And it was not easy, especially dealing with that. This threw a very large gap in the way ghouls felt, the way they have been hyping themselves up. All that confidence knocked simply back onto the ground. Now, with that being said, let us cut over to somewhere else. You do have Class 1A and Bakugo Katsuki, or her real name, Katsuki. She was brought into CCG custody, and after basically being outed and informing the public that she knew Izuku Midoriya, he specifically came here tonight to save her. Her being labeled as a ghoul sympathizer and arrested. Now, Class 1A does actually want to see her. They want to understand what is going on. They labeled Bakugo as a her on the news. Bakugo's a dude, so they have their information wrong. However, whenever they do go in and are actually able to see their friend due to All Might wanting to talk to her, yeah, they can see very clearly that that is not the case. Since, yeah, she doesn't have all those fancy things that she uses to hide her body. She doesn't have the wraps and the bulky pieces of clothing or loose pieces of clothing that she normally wears. She is basically wearing a prison jumpsuit. And if you weren't paying attention, yeah, you would clearly miss her shape, I guess you could say. All Might wanting to talk with her and understand what is going on with Midoriya, the young man he once knew or met before. Along with that, wanting to understand why she's been helping him. Her just straight out saying that she has not been helping him. She only knows him for the matter of the fact being that they went to the same school. And then one night she was kidnapped. And he saved her then. She didn't know he was the owl until even a couple of days ago. Not even whenever the CCG released that information. You know how hard it was finding out my friend was alive, All Might? Imagine that. Someone you know. They disappeared one day, and they couldn't find a body. How would you feel if you didn't even know they were alive? How would you feel if they just turned up one day? Now, All Might does think about his former mentor, Nana Shimura. They never found her body, most likely because it was vaporized. Some part of him wants to believe that she is still out there. Some part of him wants to believe that she is alive. If she showed up one day and simply just told him that she can talk with him and explain everything, he would take it. She was like his own mother. He would give up everything. He was already going to be forced to walk away tonight, but if he wasn't, he would give up his hero career, just to sit down and talk with her for one day. Find out everything that has happened and get a full explanation, a rundown. That's it. He would leave. Him simply informing the CCG that they have their information wrong, and giving a public comment that the villain that young man killed, he has taken and destroyed quite a lot of lives, and he simply would have escaped prison, since Midoriya killed All for One. All Might's simply not hiding it anymore. He wants to free his student. So if she's going to be labeled a Ghoul sympathizer, he's going to give out as much information about that villain he knows, so that people know that boy came here to fulfill a good mission. Simply spilling about All for One being able to give and take quirks. And that the guy had over 50 quirks, possibly even more. That being the only comment he gives, as he simply leaves. Now, let us cut over to Midoriya. He is back in the warehouse, or safe house as you can call it. And, well, he's simply just sitting there, as he is messing with his hands, and moving his fingers around, trying to get accustomed to this. Now, he's trying to think for a minute. He wanted to jump into action, just jump in and save Bakugo. However, he had to run. If he saves her, then she has no human life to run back to. That's it. She is labeled a Ghoul traitor. Or a Ghoul sympathizer, a sympathizer to humanity. So he did the best thing he could. They are going to have to release her one day, since there's no solid evidence. Momo and Eto, however, yeah. They have been talking. Eto with Yoshimura, and Momo with her father. Now, Eto is sort of angry, and completely pissed off at her father. Her actually punching him in the face, and yelling at him for abandoning her. 16 years ago. And it being completely enraging to her. She wants to make her Kakuja and simply just impale him through a spike. Run it through his head. she could have had a completely different life and been somewhat normal in the head. Now, she actually does begin to cry, her father trying to comfort her, to which she simply just smacks his hand away and leaves. Midoriya simply being in the same room whenever that happened. He heard it and saw a lot of it go on. As he gets up and goes to make a pot of coffee, everyone is going to need to settle down, and coffee is the best thing to do so. They will all at least sit down, and yeah, they can try and formulate a plan then. As soon as Midoriya begins to brew it, he actually does turn to his left and try to listen in on what is going on with Momo. Now, in Momo's room, she is trying to talk with her father. Her father simply being angry. They lost quite a few of their people, as he begins to beat her and tell her that if they simply stayed out of things like he planned for them to, then this simply would not have happened. As he smashes down with her with his Kagune, simply telling her that she wanted to go to that hero school. She wanted to try to be human. However, look where it got them. As his Kagune raises to the air and goes to slam back down on her, going to break another bone, to which it simply stops. And Midoriya, he is just standing there directly behind Momo's father, Mr. Yaoyorozu, his hand directly holding on to the Kagune. At the base, his hand is fighting against it as it tries to move forwards, and the muscle in his arm is almost bulging outwards. Midoriya simply tells him that he should not hit her. Now, wasn't I clear on that? Midoriya simply pulling it out, and then quickly opening his hand up and running his fingers into Mr. Yaoyorozu's back. Before he can even scream, Midoriya rips out the Kagune sack, and Mr. Yaoyorozu falls onto his knees. Midoriya simply walking around him and telling him that he needs to listen. I already told you I don't like it whenever you do that, whenever you hurt her. In fact, neither of them did. So neither do I. Them? Yes, the other two. They are I, and I am they. As this Midoriya simply helps Momo off of the ground and sets her down into the chair. She is going to need to eat to regain her strength. Midoriya telling her that he's going to be back in a minute. Before he simply walks into the next room, gets a piece of meat out of the fridge, and brings it back, giving it to her, as he has to help her since her hands are broken, and so are most of her arms. Now, after she's done eating, Midoriya simply looks at Mr. Yaoyorozu, telling Momo to keep an eye on what's going to happen. Midoriya is simply just cracking his knuckles, as Mr. Yaoyorozu, he almost killed his daughter, so Midoriya almost kills him. He simply started with the legs, then worked his way upwards, before the ribs, then the arms, then the fingers, then breaking the jaw, and simply putting something in his mouth so that he stops screaming. After that was all done, Midoriya, he simply helped Momo to her feet, since she was still healing. And he asked her if she would like to finish the job, or leave him like this. She felt different. After the night, her dad simply kept doing this, belittling her. She has had enough of it. He didn't even know about the operation. He didn't know about the counterattacks. Neither did they. This is not their fault. They lost a lot of good people tonight. I understand that, Dad. But you almost kill your own daughter because of something she couldn't even think about, predict, something that wasn't even part of the plan. You are not like her. You said you loved Mom, that you loved me, but now I see why she left. Why she tried to save me from you. Her simply making her ukaku, telling her dad goodbye before she cuts off his head. And she keeps her eyes closed. Midoriya leading her out of the room. Now, with that being said, they do need another plan. Momo is now in control of her people, not her father. So, they need something. Eto coming walking up, asking about what happened. Midoriya and her simply just looking at her, without saying a word. Before Momo just says that her father will not be part of the plan anymore. I see. Well, I guess that if it had to happen, why not? Anyways, now, I've gotten into contact with the king. He said that our plan the other night failed, and that the casualties we encountered were acceptable losses. Is that it? Is that really what he thinks of all of our people? Well, yes, he does. Either way, we do have to continue on. We have to find him. We need to find whoever's in charge of the CCG and take him down. Once we do, then that is whenever we can simply put our proper plan into motion. So, as she just walks up to Midoriya and runs her hand across his face, saying, "What about him? The hair is different and she kinda likes it." Momo is simply just staring at her, as Midoriya just looks down at her, before bringing his own face forward. And the two aren't even inches away from each other's face. They're barely even making skin-to-skin contact. Midoriya simply just whispers to her. He knows what she is now, and he knows why she acts this way. Simply whispering a few words that make her jump backwards and begin to blush, saying that she just wants to be loved, and he'll be the guy who does it. Her jumping backwards, and then at least trying to walk away, trying to hide her face, while Momo simply just asks what that was all about. And that she does actually want a good explanation for that. Well, how's this? Midoriya then pulling her into a kiss. Her being confused, but not really fighting it. Yeah. She kinda stopped caring after that. And, well, then there's the fact that they have to make another plan. A plan B. Now, Momo actually does begin to think, along with Midoriya. The two throwing a bit of ideas back and forth. Some that involve the Ghoul's public image, along with what has been happening tonight. The remnants of the white suits in Origiri Tree, along with Momo's people. Yeah. They barely have over roughly about 500 ghouls, possibly less. They don't have accurate numbers right now. However, they're trying to highball their estimations, hoping that there's more survivors. Now, with that being said, They throw things back and forth, until eventually they do sit down, have a cup of coffee, and Yoshimura does actually ask a few questions. If Midoriya does know his daughter, and exactly how did he find her. Midoriya then choking on his coffee, and asking Yoshimura exactly what does he mean his daughter. I knew you were yelling with that chick, but she's your... Oh man. Now, Yoshimura does actually begin to ask a question. If he knew that she was his daughter, then why didn't he ever tell him? Yeah, I didn't know. Ah, well, young man, can you please tell me how you two met then? Uh, yeah, we met at a coffee shop. She wanted to meet me and talk with me. The place blew up when we had to run from the CCG, though. We were able to get away. Eto then walking in, getting a cup of coffee, pouring it, and then saying, they got away, yeah, but she learned a bit more about Midoriya. Yoshimura simply looking at her and asking exactly what would that be. Her then saying that he has no idea how to kiss a girl. Before he simply just slams down his coffee and breaks the cup. A bit confused. To which she just says that she's just joking. The dude's an excellent kisser. This somewhat making him a bit more angry. Yoshimura is just turning and smiling at Deku, asking him exactly when did this occur. Yeah, we kinda had to fake something to get away from the CCG. So, as Momo just says, they basically had a fake out make out. Now, Midoriya just says that that's a pretty good name for it. But, yeah, it actually did work. However, that was the only time that it ever happened. Yoshimura doesn't look a bit pissed off anymore. He does get that it was a plan, but he does still look a bit annoyed, not wanting that mental image in his head. As he gets up, pours another cup of coffee, and simply walks into the next room. Now, with that being said, these three are somewhat just sitting there, in awkward silence, as Momo and Eto begin to have a few conversations. While Midoriya, this new one, you could say, just begins to think. Now, I do believe that that will be a good point to leave this off of, and I do hope you guys enjoyed. And have an amazing night. I'll catch you guys in the next part.